Hello and welcome to this episode here today. Glad you're joining us here. We're actually in the lobby of the ComputerWorld and the IDC Insights offices here, home for Eric Lundquist.
This is my home.
Excellent to have you here. I'm glad that we actually were able to get out and do
Sometimes I do leave the office, but most of the time.
There you go. But anyway, this is in Framingham, Massachusetts here, and hopefully the sound will carry. This is a new format for us in this show to give this a try here. But Bill Sell, working with you pretty much on every one of these episodes, so good to have you back with us today. And a quick introduction of who's with us here today. Let's start on your end there, Tom. Tom Henderson, hello there.
Hi, I'm Tom Henderson. I'm with Extreme Labs. We do research and testing for organizations like ComputerWorld and IDG and a lot of private end users.
Thank you. Colin.
Colin Browning. I'm with New Marketing Labs. We produce some outstanding events like the Inbound Marketing Summit, and we also consult with various clients on social media and new marketing.
And he has a great story about the new model of road trip. I'm Eric Lundquist. I'm the director of new media at ComputerWorld, and let's get started.
Absolutely. Well, this is a version of new media here to be able to bring this kind of an episode to you. And one of the things that we would like to really cover today, what's happening in the technology world. And there are a lot of stories out there that we have lined up for our discussion here. But let's start with a little bit of the news of the day. We're hearing something about Google thinking about Twitter. What is happening on that? Any good rumors?
Well, there's always good rumors, and it's part of just a real wave of rumors about takeovers right now. There seems to be a lot of activity. The discussion about Twitter being taken over by Google came last night via TechCrunch, and everyone these days jumps on it all of a sudden. Might make some sense. A lot of people feel it's really more of an advertising relationship. Why would Twitter want to cash out it just when it's on the wave up? So that one, there seems to, like a lot of rumors, there's something there, but it's not all that. The Sun being taken over by IBM seems much more real today.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of different permutations and angles on if a Twitter was picked up by Google. They don't have to be merged. People immediately think, let's merge them, let's link them all up, but they could actually be completely unrelated, unlike many of the other acquisitions that Google has really taken on, where they've rolled things into it. This one sounds like they'd probably keep them separate.
A Twitter? They couldn't even come up with the name. I think that'd be the most difficult. Well, unlike IBM, which really has a model for taking over companies, bringing them in, they've got a process. I really don't think Google does. They sort of buy cool stuff, and some things they integrate, and some things disappear and then reappear a year or two later. So I don't think they really know exactly what they want to do, but they do see Twitter as something that's this exponential growth, and Google really doesn't play in sort of the real-time search world, where I think if you want to be the king of search, that's where you want to play.
Colin, you've been following this whole marketplace. What do you think of this?
It seems like a perfect fit. You think about the value of Twitter, and it's really all about, there are many different value props there, but part of their leading value props are the data and the search enhancement it provides you. Because whenever you search on a topic, Twitter feeds are coming right towards the top.
Yeah.
So that makes a part of a natural synergy between the two organizations in my mind.
Well, and Google is the patron saint of weird business models. And, Twitter has really an unclear revenue stream at this point, but it has lots of possibilities. Many of those, of course, are based on search. They also anneal with other affinity-oriented sites like Dig, which also has a very weird business model, as we all know. And so this might be just the first part on Google starting to move that fat chest they have on social network affinity models, again, under the patron saint of let's make revenue, but it's going to look weird sort of ways. They also have the desire to have a great infrastructure. That means that Twitter might have a chance of going for maybe as long as 2 weeks without
without the big whale.
Exactly.
It's never gone 2 weeks without the big whale.
Well, and for that reason alone, this might be great for all of the people that are addicted to tweets. Google's trying to refine that, but they also have enormous hardware musculature and, of course, the applications, including things like Android as an operating system, and all the cool Google apps to try and synergize what happens with the social network addiction that tweets provide people.
So the one thing I haven't heard any of you talk about is the subscriber base. When eBay acquired Skype, it was all about the subscriber base. They wanted subscribers, they wanted to have the buy-in, they wanted to have the stickiness of people.
That's right.
Is that something?
It didn't really work out for them, by the way. But
Right, but that may be why. So is that one of the reasons that you don't think that that's even come up in the discussion today? That
the numbers absolutely have to matter. I mean, there's that huge of a base with that addictive quality has to mean something to Google, who's been wanting the world to love them from day one. And so it seems to me to be both a natural fit, but also with their coder power, I see them being able to take the base of the Twitter information pool and do something with that with more robust business models than Twitter's been able to expostulate at this point. You can tell that they're kind of buckling under their own weight sometimes.
Sure.
And I think the Google think tank and the developer musculature could bring a lot to the table.
Now, if you take a look, is it almost too late though for Twitter to be acquired? You've got TweetDeck, you've got all these other kinds of tools that people use. You don't have to go to twitter.com.
I'm glad you mentioned TweetDeck because we have that's the smoke alarm beep going there.
That's the
I say, what does this sound like? I go, oh yeah, this is the same
That's
sound
a
that
tweet.
TweetDeck makes,
Yeah.
makes when Twitter comes over.
That's what happens when you go in a remote video shoot and you might just have the smoke alarm in the lobby.
Well, we could have just said that's TweetDeck and we could
There you
be
go.
pretending to read
It's a
Twitter.
new format. We're just launching this new Twitter attachment here.
The whole API side, and TweetDeck's a great example of all these great applications that are built on Twitter's API. And that's another part of what makes these two companies really fit well together. Because Google has a great API strategy, and how the Twitter API strategy fits into their API strategy may be a really interesting play. Because imagine the Twitter API fitting into, say, the Google Docs API in a really interesting way. You got some really interesting things going on.
So you could probably even hashtag your documents. So unlike when you go searching on a Windows machine, trying to find it, if you're using the cloud, you're using the Google platform.
Well,
Hashtag
in theory, Google could index it for you, and you wouldn't need hashtags at all anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly a lot of synergies, and I don't think it's too early. I mean, it's always interesting. They're big, but there's no revenues. Is it too early? Not too early. But if you are going to be the company whose job is to index all the information in the world, and the big thing going on right now is not in your universe, well, you got to get there.
That's right.
So definitely an interesting rumor. Maybe it's real. We haven't heard official announcements either way yet. So
Check Twitter.
that would be the one. Checking those tweets out on that one there. What else are you hearing in the news today? Anything big worth following?
Well, so I do think, this sort of, we should, come back to the Sun IBM thing, because that really does, there was, actually, it's sort of interesting because neither companies ever admitted they were talking.
Right.
But now we know the price, so it's somewhere between $9 and $10 a share, which is about $1 less than people were speculating. But, while you get sort of, focused on Twitter and the social networks, we got to remember that there's still a lot of business in the business-to-business world.
Absolutely.
And Sun and IBM, it does make a lot of sense in a lot of areas, but there is overlap. There's, I saw one headline, said there will be blood. there is overlap
because of the services side of the business, there's the storage side of the business. Speaking of storage, next week, storage networking world, and Sun is a player in that space. IBM is a player.
Big players.
Anything that you think may happen? Will they start talking a little bit more publicly about this, or won't even come up?
Well, the New York Times says that the deal is done, and for $7 billion. So what's going to happen right now is everybody's going to look at each other. They're going to go, your head count's too high. Well, no, your head count's too high.
Right.
Well, wait a minute, this overlaps with our product unit, and look at how profitable we are. They're going to go, oh crap. And so, the net sum is, IBM's got a big job to do, because aligning all of both the parallel business units, but also the services units, is going to be not so much a bloodbath, but that great set of things that makes, the Twitter and Google thing so natural.
Right.
That is more subs, more revenue, collapse costs, more profitability, and, of course, that incredible patent and
I was
software
just about to bring
portfolio.
that. IBM, if nothing else, they're buying that. And the R&D time to ramp up to get to some of these things is zero. You just buy it, it's yours.
And it's also inarguable at this point that the owner of the keys to the Unix incarnate essentially lies now between IBM and Novell.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. You know, so there's going to be some great arguments in the boardroom over it. There's nothing like techies arguing with each other about, you know, my SQL is better than your DB, you know, and you know, my Solaris is better than your Linux. I mean, there's going to be lots of those discussions, and you just can't carry all those product lines at some point. But I still think it is a great combination.
It was an interesting one when it came up, almost like a few years back, of course, when we had IBM Lotus, and everybody's like, no way will that make sense, no way will it happen. And it does, and they do get integrated.
Sure.
And then it was Tivoli shortly thereafter. And again, IBM has a way of pulling the companies in, making it work, unlike some of the other larger organizations out there.
So I guess, you know, what else news of the week was a CTIA this week in Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
And
Mobile World. Don't you
Mobile
get it?
World, yeah, and you really started to see Skype and the carriers come together, you know, a little bit. The carriers always really didn't want you to use Skype because you didn't need the carrier necessarily. But now you saw Skype on iPhone. You're starting to see AT&T be more amenable to Skype. You also saw AT&T start to talk about offering a $50 netbook if you sign up for their internet service. So you know, those are big events that you'll see it, you know, in a year or so. Those are big events.
Well, we're also seeing things like the iTouch with the Wi-Fi, so they can play, and they actually give you a Skype phone. You're completely avoiding AT&T.
Yeah.
Is this their way around that now? It's like, let me embrace it before I've lost it.
Well, you have Skype, you have Google Talk. I mean, it's there, and it works.
In a Wi-Fi setting.
Yeah, and it works really well. I mean, I use it to talk to my son over in England all the time. And Skype, you need to be able to have several video conferences instead of just one-to-one. Just a little help for the Skype folks.
Absolutely. We're not on Skype yet, but maybe when we do have it, we will.
It's there, and it works, and you can't just pretend it's not there. And you've got to learn to work with these technologies.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sort of like social network.
Yeah, exactly. So what are we hearing about the iRoad trip, the innovation that you guys are looking at there, the first one? What's happening in that world out there?
A lot of fun reaction to that. It was really well received by not only our sponsors, who were really excited about it, but everybody that followed us on the trip was really excited about it too. It was really, I had as you do, I'm a director at a youth soccer league, and I was stunned earlier this week by how many people that I didn't even know really that were stopping me during the meeting this week and said, hey, followed you on the road trip.
Okay.
For those who aren't aware, I ran and produced a project 2 weeks ago, the Innovators Road Trip. It's a project where we explored innovation through the heartland of America. And traditionally, when you think about innovation, it's you focus on the coasts of the United States. We felt the middle of the country was getting ignored, and so
we call it the flyover.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, but there's great innovation happening at great companies like Ford, like Gannett's Cincinnati Enquirer. They're doing amazing stuff. There's Procter & Gamble's there. They were so busy doing great stuff that we didn't have time to talk to them, or they didn't have time to talk to us, really. But Louisville Slugger is doing amazing stuff, going way beyond bats with these amazing gloves that actually can help people with arthritis.
Tell us a little bit, we talked earlier, tell us a little bit how you did it, what was in the car, how the process worked.
Yeah, so that's the thing. When you're doing a road trip, and what we were trying to do was bring the audience with us. So there was a lot of technology there. And the Ford vehicle we were in had all these great cigarette lighter outlets that we could plug into. And suddenly we had power for all our laptops.
Now, there were no ashtrays. Those really are power ports when they designed
them. Power ports when designed correctly. Yes. And so we could power up all our laptops. So 3 laptops going, and wireless network in the vehicle. And so whenever we stopped at a destination, we had a Sony Webcam
Yeah.
for our digital camera, or we had a flip cam as well. We had our iPhones with us for stills that we could upload immediately. So the great thing about this was we wouldn't have to stop and compose a post as we were driving to the next destination. So the audience was with us every step of the way, and that was made possible through, like Twitter, soon to be Google.
So you're actually able to build the anticipation as
Right.
you're approaching. I just think that's like the coolest idea.
So a little bit more than that, though, Eric. So one example, we were at the Gannett's office in Cincinnati, and we posed a question out on Twitter. Do you have any questions for Karen Gutierrez from Moms Like Me? And the audience would ask us, and we'd ask during our session, and it was great to bring that in. And we do other things too, like we halfway through the journey we felt that the car needed a name, and so
It usually happens about halfway through.
Yeah.
That was after that stop, Maker's Mark. There we go.
Exactly. But it was great to be able to share that. And then we did things like we would tease Scott Monty of Ford, who graciously provided the vehicle, and show these sort of mock situations where it looked like the car was crashing. But we were able to do that in real time and tease him along the way. And it was a lot of fun for us, for him, and for those that were listening along the way too.
So what's sort of the next step with that, though? I mean, if you
Yep.
so you did version 1.
We did version
At some
1.
point, you're going to want to do version 2. What would you add to it, or
Right.
what advice would you give to people thinking about it?
Yeah, so there's a lot I'd love to do more of. I think that while we did take some live, quick videos during some of the sessions, I'd love to bring the audience into more of those interviews, and so that they could ask more questions and see everybody live more often. So Nokia, you've probably reviewed the Nokia N95.
Yeah.
Great for stuff like that. We had a hacked version of an iPhone that was combined with Ustream to do something similar, and that worked as well. But if we had more of those phones during the trip, it would be great to just broadcast more of that for every session.
You'll actually try some things and actually make this the experimental trip. Let them,
They'll all
let
be
companies
experimental.
suggest
Yeah.
what could be used here.
Yes.
And maybe actually invent some technology, patching a few things together.
Right.
MacGyver style.
Exactly.
Innovators road trip.
The other thing we'd love to do is combine more with Facebook, because that's
Right.
that's an
Yeah.
audience
Yeah.
that's really very active and robust. We had a Facebook fan page, but quite frankly, we just didn't have the time. We were busy, working on production for so many other things, editing video and audio and things like that. Where we could probably do things like maybe ship the audio if we've already done stuff live. We could probably FTP those files to somebody else that can just cut them up and
Right.
upload them while we're participating with fans on a Facebook page, and that would help us to connect better with the audience. So
Sure.
we're thinking through things like that. I think that's a lot of fun to
And
think
for the
about.
rest of 2009, you're thinking 2 or 3 more of these road trips are going to take place.
Yeah. So we'd love to, combine spring with green and a sustainable technologies tour. So we're really thinking hard about that. There's some really great companies in the East Coast here that are doing really neat things. There's a company that we've been starting to talk to about wind power, and there's another, Pepsi's actually doing some great things.
Absolutely.
Of all companies, they've really put a line in the sand and said that they really want to reduce their consumption of water, which is something that they really do a lot of that.
Yeah.
And they want to reduce that by I believe it's 20% by 2012. I think it is. Maybe getting all.
So
of
we'll
this
be
wrong.
drinking Pepsi concentrate instead of Pepsi syrup.
Pepsi pill.
There you go.
Well, a lot of it's in the cleaning. And
Right.
production.
Yeah.
But and then also the waste and the energy consumption, their total carbon footprint. They've put a stake in the ground for all of these things.
So you'd want to do a green road trip.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I
talk-
think we were talking about maybe even something like at the University of Rhode Island, they have the first green cafeteria.
Yep.
So a dining hall, they have a dormitory, a brand new one,
Yeah.
and a classroom research lab building for their life sciences area. All of them very, very good. Everything, they're completely green footprint, and it's in
Right.
the same category. So this will be an interesting one to see. You're thinking May, June, something like that?
Late May, early June.
That would be good.
We're thinking, we're trying to get all the details in place. There's so many people we'd love to talk to. We're starting to put feelers out there. If anybody watching this has interesting story to share with
You could
us.
stop at the baseball parks along the way too.
Yeah, you know, they must be doing something interesting.
We have a Louisville Slugger. It doesn't
Really?
have to be corked. It
Yeah.
has a social media hook to it. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, what's a website that we should go to get involved with this or to watch what the event schedule would be?
So innovatorsroadtrip.com is the hub for all of this. And hub is actually a good word because that's just sort of the central blog, and that points to Flickr, YouTube, our Twitter posts, and because there's no real one central area, the media is really spread everywhere because we leveraged pretty much every piece.
But you
of
did
social
build
media.
one area where it all feeds into, so
And
someone
that
can get
was-
a little way to
That was the central
comprehend it.
blog. Yep.
And how do we follow you on Twitter?
At CR Browning.
SCR Browning.
Yeah.
Spelled like it sounds?
Spelled like it sounds. Yes.
Tom, you've been following a lot of hardware stuff. You've been doing some testing lately. Anything cool that you've been seeing in the labs that maybe you could hint at that's happening here? Wink, wink.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Say
One of
no
those-
more. Say no more.
Absolutely. Just among us four friends here in the lobby of
That's right.
ComputerWorld and IDC's Insights unit.
Can you hear me up there?
Absolutely.
Can't see the ceiling, but it's about 4 stories up there, and the crowd's up along the railings up
Oh,
there,
yeah.
being
The
really
audience,
nice.
yeah.
I want to thank you up there. In terms of cool hardware, we've seen, we'll call it both the high and the low side of hardware we saw. First piece is we've seen an octal core socket CPU. That means there's 8 computers sitting on one socket.
CPU.
Yeah, with this amazingly huge heat sink, with of course a fan on
Right.
top of that. And you know, of course, it's sucking a lot of power, but the musculature of this CPU is breathtaking. And I won't tell you which of the companies it comes from, nor whether it's in Texas or from California.
Okay.
Let's just say that it really moves quickly, and the breadth of processing musculature in this little package is just amazing. Early tests say that you might be able to realistically virtualize up to 80 Pentium 4 servers going at full bore
Wow.
with whatever the operating system is, and it's not going to lose a stride.
So now that the word Pentium there, hinting that this may be
Say no
Santa
more,
Clara,
say no
not
more.
Santa-
Not just say it,
There
okay?
we go. Yeah.
So there's a lot of work in that field, and of course there are some theoretical upper end limits as to how much you can get a multi-core machine to do before the von Neumann model starts to fall apart. You really don't get that much more added to power.
What would be an application for something like
Oh, server
that?
virtualization.
Server rooms.
Yes, and also this is a competitor. Remember the old
We
RISC?
should do one of those road trips to the server rooms. Go visit some server
We
rooms.
should. The old RISC versus CISC argument.
Right,
remember
yeah,
those?
yeah.
Right. Well, on one side, you've got companies making cell processors like NVIDIA
Right,
and
yeah.
IBM. And they're saying, we're not really the von Neumann model, we're the distributed computational model. So we could do great weather forecasts, and nuclear explosion simulations, or car crashes, or however that sort of thing goes. And we're not going to break a sweat because we're doing a lot of calculations, but we're distributing them among all of these different little tiny CPUs. So then there's the big CISC argument, which is, well, let's put everything in the kitchen sink, 2 howitzers, oh yeah, and a dump truck,
Right.
right
See
onto
what
this
it does.
substrate. Right. Okay, it uses some power, but what the hell? I mean, this is American, we use power. So you have these contending
Those
forces.
voices will kill you, Tom.
The beauty is that there's competition, and the education is we have these different intellectual models, excuse me, building enormously powerful machines.
Oh, Yeah, and then you have Amazon this week saying, look, they've added a data crunching capability to their Elastic Cloud, and say, you don't have to buy any of this stuff. We'll just, you want some horsepower, just rent
turn it on.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and when your program, your line of business application starts to slow down, it's because somebody else is predicting the weather in Kazakhstan.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, there's both sides of the argument as to which way you want to set up your corporate structure, all in-house, all outside, or somewhere in between.
Well, I think that's the point. You really do have good choices.
Yeah.
Much more so than, at one point it was sort of CISC versus RISC, or our proprietary system versus yours. You bought it and you were sort of married to it. And now it's not like that. You have options.
And the bought it is the key word there. It was a lot of money up front.
Yeah.
If you wanted to start up a small company with a great idea, that ramp-up time was huge dollars. Nowadays, it is all online, and you work on the technology, the innovation, that piece of it. You don't worry about the funding of it at day one, at least.
Yeah, well, I think you look at, whatever the next Twitter is, it's probably going to reside on something like, Amazon's cloud or someone else, Sliceos, one of these, because that's a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
And you can really concentrate on the user interface and the way the software works, rather than, is the hardware part working?
Right.
And that's a big change.
And how would you like to simulate all of that and not drag down your existing working infrastructure?
Sure, all at one time.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you can take that and pilot it, patent it, make sure that your competition, doesn't get ahead of you, and, roll it out successfully and quickly.
Well, that's a good point, because it's much faster. It's not like, okay, now with my first 15 million that I've got from the VCs, I'm going to go buy a bunch of hardware. And,
Right.
And a year from now, I'll be ready to start.
And that's been one of the drawbacks for a lot of things in the last few years. That, how do you ramp up some of these great ideas? It is, where do I go get the money? In the economy now, you just don't have that option.
It's the problem, though, that we suddenly got this wonderful capacity at an economic downturn when we could have really used it a couple of years ago.
Right.
It's also, however, a harbinger that in new business models and consolidated business models, the options for stimulating and simulating success is going to be much less costly than it has been in prior years. You don't have to bet the bank and bring in a tow truck worth of gear just to try and simulate something that ought to be comparatively simple, but could be deleterious to your running business models.
Absolutely.
Of course, it also means that competitors can come into the market much faster.
Which is what we see starting to heat up, too.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of people who will be able to extend innovation for that reward. So we see R&D money, although it's a little bit slim right now, paying off handsomely for those who want to think it through.
Right.
So I look at the quad and octal sockets with, both trepidation, but also with great glee, because they're enormously muscular.
Well, one or two of those, and we won't see the Twitter whale anymore.
Exactly.
So April, May, a lot of events take place in this point here. And first up, I think, well, we were just like CTIA is just ending at this moment. Really.
Right.
We'll be seeing National Association of Broadcasters. That will be an interesting event. Cable show, the national show is running and runs right now. So this will be an interesting couple of weeks here. We will have our Blade Systems event. The Insight program takes place at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, and that's running same time as broadcasters. So we'll get a chance to go and do both, get some coverage from both of those. Shortly after that, we've got the Inbound Marketing Summit in San Francisco, along with an open box program with the OpenID and Bill Washburn's group, along with
Jen McClure's
yes, the Snicker program. And, a lot of interesting things. So social media, broadcasting. We're going to have some more of that mainstream hardware data center, Blade technology. Cisco will be one of the lead players of that event, along with, of course, Dell and IBM and Sun. So we'll be seeing, hopefully, some interesting things coming up in the news in the next few weeks here.
And there's Interop in May in Las Vegas again at the Mandalay.
Quite a few things in Las Vegas these
Quite a few
days.
things,
right.
yes.
The tech sector is the one holding that city in place. And if you think about, they complained years ago during that Comdex event that some of us remember.
Were you involved in that?
That's small roll.
Small roll.
And I kept saying that we never gambled. Is you know, the saving grace for the springtime here in Las Vegas is tech shows, tech conferences.
Yeah.
This will be interesting to see how that one holds out.
Although not of quite as grand a scale as the...
No, it'll take 6 or 7 of these to come in close to that.
Which I think makes a lot of sense, but very focused.
Well, and the focused angle is what's working. It's
Yeah.
what we've been heavily in tune to and trying to do many, many more things in the focused market there. And financial services, we've got a life sciences program, health, IT, technology area, and obviously on the technology side with the data center and the blade technology. We're beginning to really verticalize and target companies a little bit more deeply there.
It's not that Euro pool at the Mandalay Bay that's bringing people then. Okay, I
Yes,
understand.
that what it was. I knew there was some reason we're all going to Mandalay. I
okay.
believe Interrupt might be at that same venue too. So, any last moment thoughts here, Tom?
No, Daily Tech Bites is kind of offline this week as I travel, but we're stirring things up for next week, and you'll see our review in Network World of Novell's latest cut of Linux, which is the SUSE 11, the SLED version as well, which is the SUSE Linux Enterprise Desktop.
Wow.
So, unlike Red Hat, who's pretty much written off the desktop, it looks as though Novell is going for that. And of course, their relationship with Microsoft, and oh yeah, I think they have a desktop too, don't they?
Yeah.
It looks as though they could be pretty interesting, and that side of the market is heating up well. You'll see our critique of the SUSE Linux Enterprise Edition, which is pretty interesting. Novell's been doing a lot of work and putting their developer money where their mouth is. And you'll see in the review exactly where we think that pays off.
Networkworld.com.
Networkworld.com, work week of 4/13, you'll see that one coming out.
Excellent, thank you. Colin, anything on your end? You guys, you've had the road trip. You've
Yeah.
got the first Inbound Marketing Summit coming up. You guys had a boot camp at AMD's campus.
Right.
In Austin, Texas. So there's a lot happening there as well.
Yeah, there's a lot going on at New Marketing Labs. We're busy building plans for clients. There's another boot camp coming up in Louisville, Kentucky. We road trip was through there, visiting Slugger and Makersmark, and hopefully they'll come to the boot camp there. We have as you've mentioned, the Inbound Marketing Summit in San Francisco at the end of the month. And then another in Dallas at the end of May. So there's a lot going on for us right now, and we're pretty busy.
At the beginning of May, I shouldn't forget that, Tom, you've got ITEC in your backyard.
That's right.
We will be in New York, middle of April, DC, end of April, Houston, first week of May, Dallas, end of May, along with the Inbound Marketing Summit. And we'll be trying to launch even, I think, a conference program there for training of mid-tier technology managers. Anything you want to hint at this moment? Or?
Well, what's on the back burner, but you can kind of smell it brewing, is we're going to do an executive technology update. It's designed to be a low entrance cost, $99 siege assault on your brain of what's happening in new technology in the past 12 months. So it's designed for 8 different sessions so that you can come back and leave during the day, all on salient tech topics ranging from cellular business technology innovations through to computer security, virtualization, storage, what's happening in the services sector, and so on. It's designed again to be a big download, but it has a very small price, $99.95 a head. And I'll be leading about half of the sessions, and we've got other business segment leaders to do the sessions that I'm not going to be doing.
Okay.
And very, very in-depth. Come with your notebooks. Bring a water bottle because we're not going to let you go. So.
It's a great idea. We'll be promoting that as part of our ITEC in Indianapolis program in the next couple of days here. Eric, you guys are all the seniors.
Well, I want to go to Tom's session, and I want to go get in Colin's car. What did you name the car, by the way?
Austin powered.
Austin Power. I get it.
Doesn't have that little red light that blinks back and forth. No, that's
that's
a competing vehicle there. Yeah.
Well, the only point I'd make is that, and it's sort of a wrap up of what we're saying, is that yes, the economy is in a shambles. It's been terrible. There's some signs it's picking up, but I think somewhat, the speed of the technology innovation pace has not decreased at all. In fact, it may have increased. Honestly, it's unfortunately people leave big companies, they set up little companies, and that's sort of how innovation is supposed to work. And I'm just seeing this, blossoming of new companies and new products and new services. And I don't think I'm Pollyanna, but I'm very optimistic about how we're going to look. The technology industry is going to look coming out of this recession.
Well, we're going to try to stay ahead of the curve here. We have a number of different channels to be able to do that. It's all about getting content out, syndicating it, keeping it in front of the customer here, whether that be at the small, mid-sized business, the enterprise level, or even the consumer who's just looking for where is that next bit of information coming from. Anyway, thank you for joining us today. I'm Bill Saul, along with my guests,
Eric Lundquist. Bye.
Colin Browning. So long.
Tom Henderson, ciao.
Thank you for joining us today. Okay.
Yay.
All right.
Good job, gentlemen.